Hi everyone, this is Jamie, Shanks, and Jon Miller, and we are here to present you the state of account-based sales development. And this is based on empirical evidence. This is based on research that is going to be able to help you understand the why, the how, and what to do next. So what I'm going to do is introduce the team here. If you're unfamiliar with myself, my name is Jamie Shanks. I'm the CEO of Sales for Life, and we have built the world's largest social selling training curriculum. We train 300 global customers around the world, 75,000 sales and marketing professionals, and we have one job, and that is to move the sales community from an analog selling world to a digital selling world. And my guest is the Honorable Jon Miller, who I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Jon. I have been following you for years, and it's a great honor to have you here.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here with you as well. Yeah, so I am Jon Miller. I'm the CEO of Engagio. Previously, I was one of the co-founders over at Marketo. And Engagio, our mission is we're really trying to help bring the human touch to sales and marketing. There's so much automation out there that's just, taking that human connection away, and it's hurting our sales, it's hurting our marketing. So Engagio is really trying to help people coordinate and measure their programs at scale with the human touch.
Fantastic. So I'm going to give everybody a sense of what we're going to accomplish here today. First, you have to understand, why are we here? So what are the 3 reasons for deploying an account-based sales development strategy? Then, what are the top 3 outcomes you can anticipate? Why are companies around the world already doing this? And then ultimately, what is the channel? What is the go-to-market strategy for starting your account-based sales development program? And of course, Jon and I are going to tell customer stories along the journey as to that transformation of moving from however they were geo-based inbound sales professionals, how they transitioned to account-based sellers. So that's what we're going to concentrate on. Jon, take it away here.
Cool. We need the slides on, I think.
Sorry, say that again?
I'm not seeing any slides.
Oh, you're not seeing any slides because I need to present.
There you go. All right. So everybody, you just got the cool introduction without any slides. It was even more personal and even more human, which was awesome. So we'll focus everybody on the slides for this part. All right. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about nets versus spears. Let me explain what I mean by that. Back when I was at Marketo, about 80% of all of our pipeline was coming through our demand generation funnel. So marketing would generate leads, we'd pass them to sales development, qualify it, and boom, create opportunities. But as we were looking to scale, we were looking to grow faster about a year before IPO, we found that, that wasn't enough. We needed new ways to grow. And we had started, working on, we created a list of targeted accounts, and we started doing outbound strategies to go after them, because it turns out, they weren't necessarily coming to us. We had to go to them. And that's when I started using this analogy. The kind of marketing and sales we had been doing was like fishing with a net. We didn't care which fish we caught, we just cared, did we catch enough total fish? But as soon as we started working on a named list of accounts, we were not fishing with nets, we were fishing with spears and going after the big fish. It was just a fundamentally, completely different go-to-market model. And to be honest, tools like Marketo, Eloqua, HubSpot, were not really the right tools for that. And that's ultimately what inspired me to start Engagio, to be the platform for spear fishing in much the same way that those other tools are the platforms for net fishing. So in this world of spear fishing, outbound account-based activity, turns out that account-based sales development is the single most important tactic that you have. According to Topo, account-based sales development has better results than any other account-based activity. So what makes account-based sales development different from all the other, kinds of sales development that we've been doing for years? Well, first of all, it is outbound. but it is very much not the Aaron Ross kind of predictable revenue style of prospecting, the lost lamb that's just reaching out saying, hey, who's the person responsible for, IT infrastructure at company XYZ? Account-based sales development, it's not blasting out emails, for your field sales team. Sending more sales spam to your most important people at your most important accounts isn't going to get anybody anywhere. And account-based sales development is not about volume, right? It isn't about how many emails you sent or how many dials you made. Activity metrics are always important, but those are important as a way to diagnose why something might not be working as opposed to the outcome in and of itself. Account-based sales development is about focusing your energy on the most valuable accounts. And by focusing, it's not spray and pray. You're able to spend the time to research and be more relevant, to multiple people at that account. It is about enabling challenger sales style conversations, where we're actually going to be disrupting the status quo of our buyers at our target accounts and teaching them something new in a way that's tailored to the way, to their specific business. When you can do this, it has benefits of bigger, more strategic deals. On the next slide, I can illustrate kind of what that looks like at a high level. Number one, the economics are better. Not surprisingly, if you proactively go after big fish, you will get bigger fish than if you just wait to see who you catch in your net. When you are reaching high into larger accounts, when you are creating the opportunity and not ending up as column B when they come to you, in many ways, by definition, you're going to just get better economics, higher ASPs, which everybody wants. Second, why is ABSD hot right now? Well, it's hot because more and more companies are realizing they're getting a declining return from inbound channels. Inbound only gets you so far. Demand gen can only get you so far. And people are finding nets only get you so far. In many businesses, they're realizing that they need, those channels are saturated, or they need new ways to grow. In the early days of Marketo, all I had to do was write a blog post on a topic, and we'd end up ranking on the first page of Google. Now buyers just, are overwhelmed with marketing activities, and we need a new way, a new set of tools to reach out to them. And lastly, this is happening now because the technology is finally making the human connection available at scale. Great salespeople have always been doing account-based prospecting, right? They've always been going outbound in a strategic, relevant way to their accounts. But frankly, that what didn't scale to the hundreds or even thousands of accounts. Now technology like Engagio and other platforms is emerging that really lets this happen at much greater scale. So those are the three key reasons from an academic perspective, but we wanted to find out really from actual practitioners, why are they doing account-based sales development? Jamie?
Yeah, and actually I wanted to ask you a question, John. So from a sweet spot standpoint, if you were to look at your customer base, what is the typical inflection point, whether it's number of accounts or size of their target market or size of their organization or the sales goals they need to hit? What is like the common denominator you're seeing in customers coming to you and say, I have to make a change?
Probably the biggest factor is actually average contract value or average selling price.
Yeah.
I think when people, if you're doing $10,000 deals, then frankly, the net approach probably works pretty well for you, and it isn't worth the cost or the investment to spearfish to the bigger accounts. When people are selling $40,000 deals, $50,000 deals, now all of a sudden it's like, you know what? It really is more cost effective for me to know who I want to go after and target them.
Yeah.
And when people are doing $100,000 deals and above, that's when they start to really recognize that this is a spearfishing world, and they need to be treating each one of those accounts as valuable individual accounts. Where the worst thing they could do would be send them something generic and spammy.
Yeah.
So it's average contract value is the number one factor, I think.
And that makes sense. They start evaluating their cost of customer acquisition against the reality, I need to double my average ACV. Well, my Lord, the only way I'm going to do this is if I start pinpointing my account. So why don't I bring in, we did a survey and a study around 500 B2B leaders, and what did they say around their account-based sales development strategy? If you haven't already gotten this report, everybody that is attending this webinar, that is registered for this webinar, will get this report, but it'll be downloadable within a week for anybody else if we kind of watch this at a later date on a recording. But let's break down some of the math here. And the obvious statement, it's going to be, every industry goes through a maturation process. And it happens in my space. My space is moving sales professionals from analog to digital. Well, that social selling demand curve had certain organizations, certain industries flock to social selling. And starting in about 2012 and 13, it was the exact same companies. Software, IT services, telecom, professional services is on its way. But that demand curve is because you have a highly leveraged inside sales force, huge global like a sales force that is on every continent, and is quite large and robust, and is also willing to try new things, new tools, new technologies, new strategies, constantly investing in themselves to adapt. And so, John, would you say, if you looked at your customer base, that it's probably in line with the type of organizations that have already made the jump, and then thus, if you are a software company or an IT company seeing this data for the first time and you don't have a strategy, you are no longer an early adopter?
Yeah, I think that's very much true. I mean, not surprisingly, software, IT, these are the companies that tend to sort of be the most aggressive about finding the new strategies, whether it's sales and marketing strategies or IT strategies or HR strategies. A lot of the innovation does come from those industries, and we certainly see that in our customer base.
Yeah. Perhaps talk about some of the outcomes that you're seeing.
Yeah. So we did this. We did this research, and the number one benefits that people are seeing when doing account-based sales development, not surprisingly, is increased revenue, increased pipeline, and better overall leads. I think the other thing that's interesting about this, is of all of these, the reduced customer cost was the least frequently cited benefit. This isn't necessarily a cost reduction strategy, right? This is a strategy of focusing your costs onto the best accounts in order to grow better.
Yeah.
On the next slide, we talk a little bit then about what drives people to sort of embrace this. The top reasons, again, are basically identical: revenue, pipeline, and higher quality leads. But the other top one that is right in the middle is better engagement and penetration into target accounts. And I think that's a really key thing to focus on as well. We can't always measure our results here in terms of pipeline and revenue. In many cases, we're going after these bigger accounts with longer sales cycles, and if we can't wait a year to see if this is going to drive ROI, but at the same time, it can take up to a year to actually create a deal at a big target account. So we do need metrics that are going to measure success along the way, and that's where I think engagement and penetration matter so much. At least are we connecting and with the right people at the right accounts and having them spend time with us? That's a great sign that we're on the path to more revenue, even if we haven't seen that revenue yet.
Yeah, I think one of the net effects that we've found is really a real positive here that people sometimes don't focus in on. A couple slides ago, John talked about drilling deeper into a particular segment, whether it's an industry or a geo, but there's a concept called the sphere of influence. So as an example, if I'm choosing the accounts I'm going after, I have two paths in my life. I have by wallet share, so I pull up the Inc. 5000 list and I start targeting based on potential spend. But then there's a concept where I'm reverse engineering the social networks or just the networks in general or competitors of the accounts I'm already winning. So if I want to go deep, deep, deep into, the cybersecurity space, by you targeting the one and winning the one and building a use case, now you have the authority to start going after all the other cybersecurity companies. And it starts to multiply itself. You win 2, then you win 4, then you win 8, then you win 16. And that's another reason to do this is you could kind of capitalize on a particular market.
Yeah, well, I think, that's one of the beauties of your spearfishing is you get to pick who you're going after up front.
Yeah.
And, being, one of the most important things is the smarter you can be about focusing on the best opportunities, the more effective your results.
Absolutely. So let's dive into what you're seeing here with getting the best yield and throughput and satisfaction from your ABSD strategies and efforts. And in fact, one of the things that I'll just bring up, and I kind of look at it as my own business, is around controlling your own destiny. I think that's like if you look at here, this survey, extremely satisfied, fairly satisfied, the why, like why did we do this and what are we getting out of this? It's control. Like myself as the CEO, so anybody that's followed Sales for Life, heavily reliant for years on inbound and channel as an example. And that's great. You start doing a couple $1 million, but now you want to get to 10 million. You want to get to 20 million and 50 and 100 or however big you want to get. I need to actually start pinpointing the accounts that are going to get me there, because even if I reverse engineer the capacity of my demand gen waterfall, no matter how much I throw at it, it's only going to get me so far. So from a satisfied standpoint, that's one of the big net effects that you're seeing from leaders and why they're satisfied, because they're winning that 100,000 ACV deal that they weren't getting before. John, anything?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, anything you want to add before we get into the most effective channels and tools?
I just think, again, it's a good reminder that, this is not a kind of thing that's going to have instant results overnight. And therefore it's important to go into this with building alignment across the organization around what to expect and when.
That's great feedback. It actually did take longer than anticipated. So let's dive into some of the most effective channels and tools that you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with what's not effective. I mean, all of us, any person in business today has seen this massive rise of emails, that are being of email prospecting, and I get 7 or 8 a day, and the vast majority looks something like this crappy email, where, obviously this person did not spend a lot of time to really personalize their message, to really understand me or my business. Next slide, when I get crap like this, I'm hitting the spam button. I am sending that to, making it impossible for them to reach me or to reach anybody else ever. And so I think the number one thing that if you're going to take anything away from this whole talk, I think about account-based sales development, it's that, why would you ever risk the most important people at your most important accounts hitting the spam button by sending them something generic or templated, right? We've got to, we're focusing our efforts on the important accounts. So we've got to find a way to increase our odds and get a more likely result from, again, these most important accounts. And we do that, on the next slide, by being more personalized and being more relevant. We do that by putting together sophisticated programs that don't just talk to one person, but work the entire account. Because think about it. When you're prospecting into a company, any one person can say no. So if you're single threading your prospecting, you're putting your success and your organization's success at risk. You want to talk to multiple people. And you don't want to just be a lone wolf, right? You've got a whole company available, to help you as you reach into these accounts. And that's why ultimately I talk about these 5 different levels of what I call orchestration. And I call it orchestration instead of automation because I'm really highlighting the fact that we're bringing humans involved. So the lowest level is when you just send somebody an email, and you might do that with HubSpot, Sidekick, or CloudApp or something. Level 2 is when you put together a series of emails. So if the person doesn't respond to email 1, maybe you do email 2, 3, and 4 to bring it to the top of their inbox, for example. Level 3 is recognizing that we live in a multi-channel world. And so instead of just doing it over email, we might bring in email, phone, and social. Level 4 recognizes that you might have better results if all the interactions are not coming from just one person at your company, right? You can have marketing create some air cover by perhaps sending a direct mail package to warm things up. You can have an intern research the account and then draft the customized email and then have it actually sent from an executive or one of your salespeople. And how do you coordinate these interactions across multiple people? And then lastly, the highest level, as I said, is really not just reaching into one person, but reaching into the whole account so that no one person can say no. So ultimately, this highest level, we can go to the next slide to talk about this, is what I really call about doing an account-based play. Because you've got your whole team who's reaching out to the account, marketing, sales, executives, sales development, and you've got the whole account you're reaching out to. So it's like X's on one side of the chalkboard and O's on the other side of the chalkboard. And the play is all about who's going to do what and when. And this really is the idea of orchestration, right? We're going to automate what we can, but then we'll bring the human touch in where appropriate, because that human touch is going to be what makes things relevant and personalized and less likely for our prospect to hit the spam button. So that's kind of the theory here, a little bit of what I'm talking about for kind of how to make this work. And then we saw some similar insights in the data.
Yeah, and actually, and John, quick question. One's going to be an obvious part of the question, but then how do you solve it without? So how critical, I'm running account-based plays, I'm selling into the software space, or I'm selling into the banking industry. How critical is it that my marketing team is attached at my hip, helping me along that journey, building me the storyboard for that particular customer? I'll ask that, and I think that's an obvious question, but then what do sales teams do where their marketing team sits in another city or another country, and there's just such a silo between sales and marketing? How effective can the sales professional be who's autonomous?
Well, I think the question you have to ask is, let's say you're not doing this in conjunction with marketing and your competitor is, who do you think is going to win?
Yeah.
So I think the answer has to really do it with, the coach who writes the plays. Whether that's a marketer or a salesperson or somebody who sits in between, I think somebody should be thinking about the playbook. And the playbook is basically says who on your team does what when. Yeah. And a good coach will have multiple plays. And then you as a salesperson, you're like the quarterback, and you're going to decide, okay, based on what I see, I'm going to call this play.
Absolutely.
But if you set that up right, then marketing knows what to do when you call that play. They know to cut left and then, do a block or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's the key is having using your playbook as a way to really make sure that all the activities are coordinated. Now, I will say that's pretty manual at a lot of companies, and it is part of the reason we built Engagio is to help streamline that stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the playbook that is what makes things work.
And you probably heard in John's language, these mediums are all piece of the puzzle, all the communication mediums. He talked about phone. He talked about email. Remember, social is just a piece of either the data, the find and research part, or the engage and educate piece. It's just a piece of that puzzle, because as you see here, there's pay-per-click advertising, there's direct mail. Dan, who put on our team, who put together this deck, who's been running account-based sales development plays in our organization, put together a piñata strategy, and the piñata was stuffed with our social selling mastery book and market intelligence of that company versus their competitors, all put in a big giant box. And the reason all of this is done is, what is the intent of account-based sales development? First, to create interest and intrigue, to get in the door, and then eventually to, as John was talking about challenger selling, I need to teach, tailor, and take control. I'm going to need to put them on a nurture track, because guess what? As the challenger customer would say, the plate spinning theory, you're going to have people learning at different speeds. And your sales cycle might be 6 months to a year to 2 years. I'm going to need to continue to push them off their status quo, continue to educate them properly. I'm going to need a whole cadence for there. So I've actually always looked at ABSD as a two-part series. The part of getting me in the boardroom or on the go-to webinar, and the part that is keeping them engaged for the remainder of the customer journey or the buyer's journey. So that's what you're seeing in front of you as data points. Social is a medium, as is all of these other touch points.
And I do think it's worth pointing out that this question is asking, what do people use, as opposed to what's the most effective. Right? Like we have found internally, and a lot of our customers have found, that direct mail plays a huge role.
Huge.
Like your piñata. Because think about how many calls we get per day and how many emails we get per day, right? Like you can't call me. I'm uncallable. I hear hundreds of salespeople saying challenge accepted. But I'm uncallable. And then, I get so much email that I just hit spam on, but a package shows up on my desk. All right, I'm going to look at that at least.
Yeah.
And so the key is don't do random acts of marketing or random acts of sales development. The key is to orchestrate these things into plays. Yeah. And so maybe that does involve marketing sending a direct mail package, and then sales, having a nice, smart, personalized, coordinated follow-up. It's when you get things working together is where the magic happens.
Absolutely. And I'm going to touch upon where does social fit in that cadence. And I want you to reframe it just from social, but also think of it as digital. As an example, we use Vidyard Viewed It. And within one of those plays, John calls them plays, some companies call them cadences, whatever you'd like to call it. The concept here is that we can make all kinds of personalized videos. Instead of a written text-based email or text-based in-mail, I can make a one-to-one video contextualizing and humanizing conversations or third-party data. I can put all that together for you, and that's just yet another play. Top channels and tools, John, that you're seeing here.
Well, I think, we hit some of this a little bit just, on the, this is more about tools. So not surprised to see sales intelligence here at the top, alongside CRM, because that's pretty, essential. A big part of this is everything I said, it's about being relevant. It's about being personalized. Yeah. And the more intelligence you have at your fingertips to do that, the better. What I am, I guess personally, maybe not surprised, but I object to a little bit, is the predominance of the outbound sales platforms, here, as well as marketing automation. And the reason why is because I just feel so strongly in the value of the human touch. I mean, we're reaching out to important people and important accounts, and to think that we can be successful just automating that is erroneous. We need humans. We need people to take the time to understand the account, personalize the interaction, and then actually try to connect somewhere. And to me, that is really much more about orchestrating the interactions between marketing, sales, and sales development, and not just automating it through some platform.
Where I do see the values in those platforms is the data collection. So you can start understanding your three levers: volume, velocity, and probability or conversion. And of course, I could input all of that activity into Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics and pull reports, but because most sales professionals are lazy and that information isn't in there, one of the benefits I do see with those platforms is the capturing of data to make my job as the CEO much easier, where you can come to me with a business case that says, boom, here are my activities influencing sales results or sales opportunities.
Ultimately, measurement really matters.
Yes, exactly.
And you've got to be able to tie your work to your outcomes, no doubt about it.
And this should be the most obvious slide to anybody who's already started an account-based sales development strategy. And if you haven't, social is a piece of the puzzle, okay? You will either use it, as John talked about, to being highly relevant, highly contextual. So you need to use it as a research tool, a data collection tool, an insights collection tool, whether it's insights like third-party content. And then you need to deploy conversations. Like, social isn't just listening. Social is a contact sport. Social is having conversations with the customer, getting them into a next step, moving them along their journey. And so those that are running an account-based sales development program, I mean, it's insane to think that you wouldn't make social part of that process.
Agreed.
John, the tool, the tool maze here. Talk us through, and this I think is confusing executives. There's just so many tools, what to do, how does it all kind of come together?
Yeah. Well, my intent here is not to just be, just a wash of logos, but to actually put some structure into the space here. And so the way I think about it is that first column. I'm getting some feedback there. That first column is the who. So which companies do I want to go after, and then which people at those companies, do I want to go after? And you can do that by buying data. You can do that with predictive, and you can do that with more advanced tools like intent. The second column is the social intelligence that we were talking about. How do I understand these people and these accounts so that when I reach out to them, I can do it in a way that's more relevant? And perhaps, at the bottom there, content customization, some of the tools that actually create customized interactions. The where then represents the various channels I have available to me, which we've been talking about, whether it's the top set of channels, which are more marketing oriented, like ads and direct mail, or the second row, which are the more human channels, like email, phone, and social. Underlying that is really the orchestration, which is that process of how do I coordinate those interactions across the different channels and across the different people into coordinated, synchronized plays. And then across the bottom is the infrastructure, things like analytics, and something that I think is actually super important but kind of geeky, which is lead to account matching. How do you actually take all those leads in Salesforce and tie them to the right account? So that way you can actually be truly account-based in your follow-up. You don't need a tool in every one of these buckets to do account-based sales development, as we just said, but just as sort of all the tools that you might consider in the space.
I fully agree with you. One of the core challenges, when we started this process, one of the core challenges our sales team said, go into the Leads tab in Salesforce, type in Microsoft, and there's like 174 people at that account sitting in Leads, but they're not rolled up under the account, and they're not kind of segmented by economic buyer, decision maker, all the normalcies of being able to segment who's who. And that's a huge problem, because then all of a sudden you have your SDR team calling into the same accounts that your field team's having conversations with, and that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, so it starts to put it all together.
Yeah, lead to account matching really matters.
Yeah, I fully agree. So as we get to wrapping this up, I'm about to take questions. Jon, your team, honestly, you guys are creating the definitive guides on the why, the how, and the who of account-based sales development. Guides people to some resources that they should grab.
Sure. Well, so, I have a 140-page book I've written on this topic called The Clear and Complete Guide to Account-Based Sales Development. You can grab it, and actually it's a little sister, The Clear and Complete Guide to Account-Based Marketing. Those are both over at engagio.com/guide. We also have another book that we wrote, aptly titled How to Not Send Really Crappy Cold Emails, where we've dissected a couple dozen emails that we've received about what works and what doesn't work, and shared some practical tips there. And then you've got your social guide, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take basically right out of Jon's The Clear and Complete Guides to Account-Based Sales Development, and now help you think where social and digital, how you move your team from analog to digital through that process. And team, I'm now throwing on my webcam. Jon, feel free to do the same. We'll take a few questions here as we wrap up. I'm going to pull up the chat box, and there's a ton of them. So I'm going to try to go and read them off quick, Jon, and you'll field these. When you choose social media for B2B sales, how do you know which platform is better for the role in your company you are targeting? Jon, maybe talking about it, how internally in your organization or some of your customers, how you had your team focus on certain social platforms better than others.
Sure. Well, it's one of the things where you got to experiment and you've got to test. Both internally across a lot of our customers, LinkedIn is usually the no-brainer. It's kind of the first place anybody goes, I think, for kind of social touches. If you're trying to reach me, that's probably going to be your best bet. But our head of sales, he lives on Snapchat, and if you want to reach him, you're going to have a way better strategy going there. And so my first takeaway is, you kind of want to try different things and use different things, because you don't ultimately know what's going to be right, for the person that you're trying to reach. The other one I personally think that Facebook is vastly underutilized. Say what you want, everybody's on Facebook. No. Not everybody, but it's got way more reach than any other platform. I think too many people are worried that Facebook isn't for work. I think Facebook is for relevant information. So if you've got something relevant, then why not find a way to kind of promote it to your target audience?
I second Jon's motion on Facebook, and in fact, we're seeing it for customer success teams. Let's just think about this logically. Jon's a customer of ours. I now connect with Jon on Facebook. I see photos of Jon's vacations, Jon's family. I get to learn more about Jon on a personal level. So now, when I'm in the boardroom or I'm on a phone conversation, I now can structure the way we speak very differently. And over time, it's more difficult to just get rid of a tool or a vendor than it is to get rid of a relationship. Sorry, I'm going to reverse that. It's much more difficult to get rid of a relationship than it is a tool or a vendor. And it's how you frame your value proposition to a person. And Facebook's a great way of connecting interpersonally. Another question I saw was from a gentleman named Tony, and he wanted to know, okay, I get the concept of the orchestrator. If you were to bank on who would do the best job in the organization, should it be the account executive who's been assigned that account? Should it be the marketer? Also related, who designs the play? Who's going to be the ultimate quarterback?
Yep. So I think it's important to be precise on the language here. And, let's talk about quarterbacks versus coaches versus players, because I think they all play a role. I think that the account executive is the best quarterback. They're the one responsible for the account and probably best able to call the play. Now, for smaller accounts, I do see the sales development rep playing the role of the quarterback. Because they're like, all right, here's your list of 500 accounts you're going to get into. Figure out which play you kind of want to run. But the more strategic accounts, it's the account executive. The coach writes the playbook. I generally have found that a marketing operations, or your enterprise field marketing person has the skills that are most often aligned with creating really good plays, right? Messaging for the buyer, thinking multi-channel, kind of pulling all those together. But the best is when that marketer works in conjunction with somebody from sales, in terms of, ultimately writing the plays. And then the players, you're going to have players all over your organization in a best practice situation. So you'll have interns researching accounts and sales development people reaching out. You'll have your executives getting involved at the right time. You'll have marketers creating air cover. And again, the key is, how do you actually orchestrate all that so it works in a coordinated fashion? How do the X's know where to go on the field? That's what the play is all about.
Fantastic. And last question, we wrap up, and it comes back to, if this was a spectrum of analog to digital, the question goes all the way back to analog, and it is fully agree that direct mail should be a part of this process. Can you give me examples? Can you give me tips around direct mail strategies? And I'll start with John. Want to hear your opinion. It comes with a mindset, and that mindset is to continue help somebody along a journey. So if you're constantly trying to educate the buyer about something they don't know, and I'm going to give a real life example. One of our sales professionals today just got off a call with a very large manufacturing organization, and that company had somebody hired in, and 3 weeks ago has been tasked with building a global social selling program, but doesn't know where to start. Well, we're actually taking online data, so we went into our marketing automation information and saw their content consumption story. What were they reading? What hadn't they read? And then we could now tailor a direct mail strategy. So what we did is we've mailed her a book around social selling mastery, but at the same time wrote her a actual personal letter that gave her some roadmaps of assets that she needs to look for that she hasn't read, and some competitive intelligence that she should get to understand very quickly as part of her State of the Union. I could have sent that digitally, but we decided to send it by mail because, to John's point, the read response rate is really high with direct. So that's just an example of something we just did today. John, maybe you could talk a little bit about best practices you're seeing.
I think that's a great, actually, the key is the integration, right? A personalized direct mail with a series of truly human touches across the board. Instead, all I'll answer about is a non-digital channel that people don't tend to think of as much in the ABSD world are events. But your marketing team does events, right? They're having trade shows, they're having dinners, right? They're having executive symposiums and all that kind of stuff. Your goal is to engage with decision makers at your target accounts, right? Reaching out to them. And it's, I think it's, if you have an ABSD mindset of how do I drive attendance to that event, how do I get the right people to show up at that dinner where my customer's speaking, that's creating engagement just as much as any other kind of more traditional prospecting.
Yeah.
So thinking about how events fit into it would be probably the other thing I'd talk about.
Fantastic. Well, team, I'm going to stop the recording now. John, it was a great pleasure.